Truistory Vibes warmly welcomes all our beloved listeners. We're so glad to see you again in our familiar time slot.
Today,
Truistory Vibes brings you a brand new story, one that we hope will touch your heart and stay with you. As you listen, feel free to leave a comment sharing the quote or moment that left the deepest impression on you. Wishing you a wonderful and meaningful listening experience. The rain had a way of lingering in Maple Falls, soaking into sidewalks, into mailboxes, into bones. It was the kind of town where time slowed down, where everyone knew your childhood nickname and the scent of your backyard barbecue. But for Ethan Miller, the rain was just another reminder of how silent the house had become since Claire left. It wasn't a bitter departure. No yelling, no slammed doors. Just a one-way ticket to Tokyo, a medical uniform folded tightly in a suitcase, and a promise whispered at the airport. It's just for 2 years. For us. For the kids. Claire had always been the brave one. The kind of woman who didn't flinch at night shifts, who'd change a tire faster than most men. Who'd kiss her daughter goodbye with a smile, even when her heart ached. She saw the overseas contract as a lifeline, a way to pull their struggling family out of the rut. Ethan had his electrical gigs, small-time rewiring jobs, a few apartment installs, but they were barely getting by. So she went. And he stayed. Left behind with their 7-year-old daughter Lily and his aging mother Helen, Ethan did what most men like him did. He endured. He packed lunches with peanut butter and jelly, braided hair with trembling fingers, and smiled through the loneliness like it wasn't slowly peeling him apart. But nights were the hardest. After Lily fell asleep, after Helen's TV sitcoms echoed from the living room, Ethan would sit by the kitchen window, sip lukewarm coffee, and stare into the mist-covered backyard where Claire once hung up laundry and laughed at nothing at all. The silence was brutal, sharp enough to cut through flesh, soft enough to make him wonder if, maybe he was the problem all along. Then came that night. It was nearly 10 p.m., and Ethan was finishing a rewiring job at a half-renovated farmhouse just outside town. The rain had started early, thin needles of cold stabbing through his hoodie, but he kept working. The faster he finished, the faster he could get back to Lily. He packed up his tools and stepped outside, nearly slipping on the muddy porch. And that's when he saw her. A woman, soaked to the skin, sitting on the edge of the bridge just past the tree line, her arms wrapped tightly around herself like she was trying to hold her world together. Her long dark hair clung to her face, and her bare feet dangled inches above the rushing creek below. Without thinking, Ethan jogged over, boots sloshing through puddles.
"Ma'am?
"Are you okay?" he called out. She turned her head slowly. Her eyes were glassy, far away. "Why'd you stop me?" she said softly. "Wouldn't it be easier if I just disappeared?" Ethan didn't know what to say. He crouched a few feet away, careful not to spook her. "Look, I don't know what you're going through, but this isn't the way."
She scoffed.
"What do you know about it?" "Nothing," he admitted. "But I've got a daughter at home who needs me. I know what it feels like to be so empty, so tired, you don't know how to keep going." The woman looked away. "I'm Ethan," he said after a beat. She hesitated. "Grace." He nodded toward the narrow path leading back to the main road. "Let me drive you somewhere. You don't have to explain anything. Just don't stay out here." Something in his voice must have cracked the wall inside her, because she stood, shakily, and followed him without a word. They drove in silence. Ethan offered his jacket. She didn't refuse. He dropped her at a nearby women's shelter. As she stepped out, she looked back. "Thank you," she said, "for seeing me." The days that followed should have moved on like normal. School runs, grocery shopping, weekend cartoons. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her, the woman on the bridge. The sadness in her eyes haunted him. It reminded him of himself, of the quiet ache that filled the corners of his chest after dark. They ran into each other again 2 weeks later, at the pharmacy, of all places. She was picking up something from the counter. He was buying cough medicine for Lily. "You look better," he offered awkwardly. She half smiled. "The rain's been nice. At least it drowns things out." They talked for a few minutes. She didn't go into detail, but mentioned a messy separation, an absent husband, a miscarriage that left her hollow. Ethan didn't press. He simply nodded. That's how it started. Small talks turned into check-ins. Check-ins turned into long walks around the park. And long walks turned into late-night texts when they couldn't sleep. It wasn't physical. Not yet. But it was intimate. Too intimate. Grace was a mirror, a cracked reflection of everything Ethan had kept buried. The guilt of not being enough for Claire, the fear that Lily would one day resent him. The desperation for someone to simply ask, "Are you okay?" and mean it. He didn't tell Claire about Grace. He didn't tell Helen either. Some truths were too complicated to put into words. But one night, while scrolling through a picture of Lily on his phone, Grace messaged, "Sometimes I think we met because the world knew we needed each other." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, "I don't know what this is, but it feels real." Back home, Lily had started drawing pictures again. But this time, it wasn't just stick figures of her and Mom. There was another woman now, standing next to Dad, smiling. Helen noticed too. The way Ethan hummed while cooking. The way he paused before answering calls from Claire. She didn't ask yet, but she watched. Always watched. In a town like Maple Falls, secrets didn't stay buried for long. And deep down, Ethan knew he was standing on the edge of something he couldn't control. But he kept walking toward it anyway. Because for the first time in a long time, the silence wasn't heavy. It was hopeful. They say most affairs don't begin in bedrooms. They begin in quiet moments. With glances held a second too long. With text messages that start with, "Just checking in." With two people telling themselves they're just friends. Ethan told himself that. Over and over again. Until the words lost their meaning. He and Grace started meeting for coffee. Never planned. Always by coincidence, or so they pretended. A run-in at the library turned into a 2-hour conversation about childhood cartoons. A grocery store encounter became a walk to the park across the street. One time, it was a stormy night and she texted, "Do you hear that rain? Sounds like the world crying quietly." He replied, "Or like it's finally letting go." By now, Ethan had stopped updating Claire as often. The daily calls had turned into weekly ones. And during those, he smiled and said all the right things. Lily was fine, school was fine, life was fine. But it wasn't fine. Not really. Every day felt like a tug-of-war between what he knew was right and what he felt was real. He still loved Claire. He respected her. But with each passing moment, Grace filled the space Claire had left behind. Not because Claire did something wrong, but because Grace was simply there. Tangible. Breathing. Listening. And that changed everything. The first time he touched Grace, it wasn't planned. They were sitting in her apartment. She'd finally moved out of the shelter and found a small rental above an antique bookstore downtown. The place smelled of old paper and lavender. The lights were dim, soft. There was tea on the table. Jazz on the radio. Lily was at a sleepover. And Helen had gone to visit her sister for the weekend. Grace had just told him about her miscarriage, how her ex-husband screamed at her for failing, how he didn't come to the hospital, how the silence afterward felt louder than his fists ever had. And Ethan, heartbreaking, reached over and took her hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "No one deserves that." Grace didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just leaned in. And he didn't pull away. They kissed like people drowning, soft and unsure at first, then desperate, like the world outside didn't matter. It wasn't lust. It was escape. Need. Maybe even love, though neither dared say it. When it was over, they sat on the couch for a long time, the silence wrapping around them like a thick quilt. "I shouldn't have," Ethan started. "I know," Grace interrupted, "but you did." He nodded. "I can't promise anything." "I'm not asking you to," she said. The next morning, Ethan made pancakes for Lily like nothing had happened. He joked about her hair looking like a pineapple. She laughed. It all felt normal, almost too normal. But something had shifted. He started seeing Grace more often. Sometimes at her place. Sometimes in the back seat of his truck parked by the lake. They didn't talk about what they were doing. They didn't define it. They just kept falling, quietly, dangerously. And yet, Ethan couldn't bring himself to cut ties with Claire. Every time she called, he felt a new kind of guilt. Her voice was thinner now, more tired. She'd talk about the long shifts, the language barrier, how much she missed Lily. Sometimes she'd cry softly and say, "Just a few more months, Ethan. Then we'll be whole again." He couldn't say it back. Helen began to notice. She wasn't a fool. Ethan started coming home later. He showered twice a day. There were receipts from places they'd never been to before. Once, Lily asked who Miss Grace was. Apparently she'd overheard Ethan mention her name on the phone. Helen confronted him one night while they were folding laundry. "Are you sleeping with someone?" Ethan froze, a towel clutched in his hands. Helen's voice was calm, almost cold. "Because I've seen this before. Your father, he did the same thing. Came home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine." Ethan lowered his eyes. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it, Ethan?" she asked. "Your wife's out there busting her back, so you can keep a roof over our heads. You think Lily doesn't see it? You think I don't?" "I didn't mean for this to happen," he said, barely audible. Helen shook her head. "Affairs don't happen. You let them happen." But Grace wasn't just another woman. She was growing inside him. Her laugh stayed in his ears when she wasn't around. Her absence made his hand shake. He started imagining life with her. A cabin somewhere, a fresh start, Lily playing with Grace's child like they were siblings. And then it happened. Grace told him she was pregnant. They were sitting on a park bench, watching the last of the autumn leaves fall, when she turned to him, eyes full of uncertainty. "I'm late," she said. Ethan blinked. "Like, how late?" 3 weeks. A beat. "You're sure?" She nodded. "Took a test yesterday." He didn't know what to say. The world tilted slightly. A child. Another child. One that wasn't Claire's. Grace searched his face. "I'm not asking you to do anything. I just thought you should know." Ethan stood up and paced a few steps, then sat back down, rubbing his temples. This wasn't supposed to happen. Grace folded her arms across her stomach.
"Yeah."
"I know." The next few weeks were a blur. Ethan stopped answering Claire's calls. When she left voicemails, he deleted them before listening. He told Helen he was working overtime. He started talking to Grace about finding a place for her closer to town, maybe even renting a small home together. The guilt didn't disappear. It just got buried. But Lily wasn't stupid. One evening, she left a drawing on the kitchen table. 3 people holding hands, Dad, Lily, and a woman with long hair. Underneath, she'd scribbled, "Mom's not here, but she's still in my heart." Then came Claire's call. She said she was coming home. Not in 6 months. Not in 3. Next month. She'd requested early termination of her contract. She couldn't take the loneliness. She missed Lily too much. "Let's put things back together," she whispered over the phone. "I'm ready to come home. To us." Ethan said nothing for a full 10 seconds. Then somehow, "Yeah, we'll be ready." That night, he lay next to Lily in bed and cried silently. He didn't know who he was anymore. A husband? A father? A man chasing comfort and calling it love? He reached for his phone and typed a message to Grace. "She's coming back. I don't know what to do." Grace read it. The 3 blinking dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. Ethan turned off his phone and stared at the ceiling until dawn. Claire had imagined her homecoming so many times. She pictured Lily running into her arms, Ethan wrapping her in a long, silent hug. The house filled with the scent of her favorite candles, lavender and vanilla. She imagined warmth, reunion, maybe even forgiveness for all the missed moments. But the moment she stepped off the plane, something in her chest tightened. A mother's instinct, maybe. Or the silence on the other end of Ethan's last call. She hugged Lily first. The little girl clung to her like a vine, face buried in her coat. Claire could feel her daughter's heart beating, quick, nervous. "Did you miss me, baby?" Claire asked, kissing the top of her head. Lily nodded but didn't answer. That was the first sign. Ethan stood back, awkward. The smile on his face felt too rehearsed. Claire wanted to run into his arms, but he only offered a short hug.
No kiss.
No real contact. Something was wrong. They drove back to the house. Helen was waiting at the porch, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. Claire greeted her with a polite smile. Helen replied with a cool nod. Second sign. Inside, the house looked the same. Same couch. Same rug. Same photograph on the wall of their wedding day. But the air felt different. It was like returning to a dream that had moved on without her. As the night wore on, Claire tried to brush off the feeling. Maybe she was imagining it. Maybe Ethan was just nervous. Maybe Lily needed time to adjust. But in the middle of the night, while unpacking, she found a pacifier tucked beneath the bathroom sink. There were no babies in the house. The next morning, Claire waited until Ethan took Lily to school. Then she went through his drawers. She hated herself for it, but the unease clawed at her chest like fire ants. She found receipts from cafes she'd never been to. A hospital ultrasound envelope with someone else's name, Grace Whitmore, and a small silver bracelet engraved with the name, Hope. The room tilted. Claire sat down, hands trembling. She wasn't crazy. She hadn't imagined the distance, the silences, the shadow that lingered in the hallway even when she couldn't see it. Her husband was having an affair, and there was a baby involved. She didn't scream, didn't call him at work, didn't even cry. Instead, she cleaned the house, from top to bottom, polished the windows, rearranged the spice rack, cooked Lily's favorite spaghetti and meatballs from scratch. When Ethan returned that evening, she greeted him with a smile. "You're home early," he said, cautious. "I missed cooking," she replied softly. "Let's eat." During dinner, Lily giggled like nothing had happened. Helen didn't touch her wine. Ethan kept wiping his hands on his jeans. It was the calmest dinner they'd had in years. It was also a trap. That night, after Lily went to bed, Claire stood by the sink while Ethan dried dishes beside her. Without looking up, she asked, "Who's Grace?" Ethan's hand froze. Claire turned to him slowly. "You can lie if you want. But if you do, I walk away right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight." Ethan set the plate down.
Hard.
"She's someone I met while you were gone," he said, eyes low. "It started with conversations. It got complicated." "And the baby?"
Claire asked.
He nodded. "It's mine."
Claire blinked.
Her chest burned, but her voice stayed calm. "Are you in love with her?" Silence. Then, "I think I am." Claire didn't slap him.
Didn't yell. Didn't throw anything.
She simply said, "You can sleep in the guest room tonight." Then walked away. The next morning, she sat Lily down with a bowl of cereal and asked gently, "Honey, do you like Grace?" Lily fidgeted. "She's nice. She sings me songs. She gives me gummy bears when I'm sad." Claire nodded. "And how long has she been around?" Lily looked up, confused. "Since I had a tummy ache in January. Daddy said she was just helping." Claire smiled, kissed her daughter's forehead. "Thank you for telling me." Later that day, Claire drove to a park on the edge of town. She sat in her car, staring at the steering wheel. Then she called Margaret. Her mother picked up after one ring. "Claire?" "I'm okay," Claire said. "But I need you to come stay with Lily tomorrow. I need to meet someone."
Who?
Margaret asked, her voice cautious. "The woman carrying my husband's child." Grace agreed to meet her at a cafe near the bookstore she now volunteered at. Claire arrived early, dressed in simple jeans and a navy sweater.
No makeup. No mask.
Grace walked in 5 minutes late. Her belly was just starting to show. She wore a long coat and no jewelry. They sat across from each other.
No greetings. No small talk. Claire spoke first.
"I know everything." Grace looked down.
"I'm sorry."
"You should be," Claire said. "But not for sleeping with my husband." Grace looked up, startled. "You should be sorry for trying to take what you didn't earn. A family.
A name.
A life built on years of sacrifice." "I didn't plan this," Grace whispered. Neither did I, Claire replied. They stared at each other for a long time. Two women, one broken, one breaking. Finally, Claire said, I'm leaving him. But not because of you. Grace's voice trembled. Why then? Because he stopped being mine the moment he let someone else become his home. That night, Claire packed her bags again. But this time, it wasn't for Tokyo. It was for the guest room. She filed for divorce the next morning. Helen didn't say a word. Ethan begged her to stay. Lily cried quietly but didn't ask questions. She already knew the answers. As Claire signed the papers, she whispered only one thing to Ethan. You don't deserve either of us. But you'll have to earn the right to be in your daughter's life again. Not just show up. Be better. Then she walked out. Head high. It should have felt like freedom. The divorce was finalized. The papers signed. The ring removed. Ethan Miller was a man unbound, free to start over, to raise a new child, to be with Grace without sneaking through back doors or lying to his mother, his daughter, himself. But it didn't feel like freedom. It felt unfinished. He moved into Grace's small rented house near the bookstore, a cozy two-bedroom with uneven floorboards and floral wallpaper that was starting to peel. Grace tried to make it feel like a home. She bought pastel curtains, framed photos of their ultrasound, even placed a welcome mat by the front door. But Ethan never unpacked all his boxes. Just in case I need to get to something, he told her. Grace nodded, pretending not to notice that he never used the drawers she cleared out for him. Living with Grace wasn't hard. She was gentle, eager to please, full of cautious affection. But she wasn't Claire. And this, whatever this was, wasn't a family yet. It was a fragile arrangement built on a fragile truth. They had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. Grace tried to close the distance. She'd lean into him on the couch, cook his favorite meals, talk about baby names late at night. What about Hope? She offered once, eyes shining. Ethan hesitated. That's a lot to name a kid. She looked away, silent. Helen came to visit once. She sat in the living room like a stranger at a motel lobby, hands in her lap, eyes scanning every photoless wall. Grace brought her tea. Helen didn't touch it. Where's Lily? She asked Ethan flatly. With Claire, he answered. Helen raised a brow. As she should be. They didn't speak much after that. The baby grew. So did Grace's discomfort. Not just physically, but emotionally. Ethan was distant. He worked longer hours. He spent most evenings at the garage, tinkering with an old motorcycle he claimed needed restoring. He stopped responding to her texts as quickly. Stopped saying goodnight with a kiss. Grace pretended not to notice until she couldn't. One night, while Ethan was in the shower, she scrolled through his phone. There were no messages from Claire. But there was a voice recording. It was Lily, from months ago, singing a lullaby Claire used to hum before bed. Grace hit play. Lily's soft voice filled the room. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Grace turned off the phone before the tears came. The baby, a boy, was born in late spring. 6 pounds, 3 ounces. Quiet.
Pale.
But healthy. Ethan named him Caleb. Not Hope. Not any name Grace had picked.
She didn't argue.
He didn't stay overnight at the hospital. Just dropped off a stuffed giraffe and left before visiting hours ended. Grace watched him walk out the door and felt the air drain from the room. It hit her then. She was not his choice. She was his consequence. Claire never showed up. But Helen did. She came to the hospital, held Caleb briefly, then asked to speak to Grace alone. I'll be blunt, she said, setting down her purse. I'm here because that boy is my grandson, whether I like it or not. Grace swallowed hard. I won't make this a war. But don't expect me to pretend you're family. Grace nodded. I wouldn't ask you to. Helen studied her. You really love my son? I did, Grace said. I don't know if I still do. Helen stood. At least you're honest. That's more than I can say for him. Back at the house, things unraveled fast. Ethan was gone more than he was home. He rarely held Caleb. He never talked about the future. One night, Grace confronted him. I need you here.
she said.
I need a partner, not a ghost. I'm trying, Ethan said, eyes tired. I didn't expect it to feel like this. Feel like what? Like I left one storm just to walk into another. Grace stepped back. So that's what I am to you? A storm? He didn't answer. And that said everything. The next morning, Grace found a note on the fridge. Gone to clear my head. Be back tonight. He didn't come home that night.
Or the next.
Grace fed Caleb, changed diapers, rocked him to sleep with trembling arms. And as she stared at her newborn's face, she whispered, I'm sorry I brought you into this. Meanwhile, across town, Claire sat in the waiting room of Lily's dance recital rehearsal. Lily spun in a pink tutu, arms outstretched, eyes bright. Claire smiled through the glass window, then turned as someone sat beside her. It was Helen. Claire stiffened. Surprised to see you here. I needed to see my granddaughter, Helen said. Then, more quietly, and I wanted to see you. Claire raised a brow. Why? To say I'm sorry, Helen said. You were right. He wasn't ready. He still isn't. Claire didn't respond. Helen continued. Whatever happens next, I hope you know you were the better person. Claire turned her eyes back to Lily. I wasn't better, just stronger. And she was. While Ethan spiraled, Claire rebuilt. She returned to her old nursing job. She bought a small townhouse with the divorce settlement. She planted daisies with Lily every Sunday. And every night, she wrote in a journal, letters to herself, to her daughters, to a life she once thought had ended. The truth was it had ended, but something better had begun. Ethan returned 3 days later, reeking of whiskey and regret. Grace didn't yell, didn't cry. She simply packed a small bag, wrapped Caleb in a blanket, and left a note on the counter. You don't know how to love what stays. I hope someday you will. For Caleb's sake, not mine. Ethan woke to an empty house. Again, children see more than we think. They feel what's unspoken. They carry what we forget to hide. And Lily Miller had seen it all. At 7 years old, she understood more about heartbreak than most adults. She had heard the arguments behind half-closed doors. She'd noticed the unfamiliar perfume on her dad's shirt. She'd seen Grace's toothbrush in the bathroom and her pajamas folded in the laundry room. She never told Claire. She didn't want her mom to cry more. But when Claire came home from Tokyo, Lily noticed something even worse than sadness. Silence. A strange, icy politeness between her parents. A quiet avoidance, like they were strangers wearing familiar faces. Then one morning, Dad was just gone. And Grace?
Gone too.
But a new baby had arrived somewhere else, and Lily didn't know whether she was allowed to feel happy or hurt. Claire tried her best. She filled their home with laughter, cooked pancakes shaped like animals, helped Lily with homework, braided her hair just like before. But Lily knew her mom cried at night. Once, Lily passed her room and heard muffled sobs. She didn't knock. She just pressed her tiny hand against the door and whispered, "It's okay, Mommy." Then came the weekend when Ethan was supposed to pick Lily up for the first time in a month. Claire packed her daughter's overnight bag in silence. Lily held her teddy bear close. When Ethan arrived, he looked thinner, older. Claire barely looked at him. "She's ready." "Thanks," Ethan said. His voice was hoarse. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Lily spoke. "Where's the baby?" Ethan hesitated. "At a friend's. For now." "Is Miss Grace still your friend?" "She's Caleb's mom." Lily nodded, then stared out the window. That night, as Ethan tucked her into the bed at his apartment, she asked softly, "Do you love me less now that you have a new kid?" Ethan froze. "What? No." "Lily, never." "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "Because you left." Ethan felt something inside him break. He sat down beside her, pulling her close. "I didn't leave you. Things between me and Mommy got complicated." Lily looked up at him. "Was it because you loved someone else?" He couldn't lie. Not to her. "Yes," he whispered. She turned her face away. "I knew." That night, Lily didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about all the things that had changed. Mom stopped wearing her wedding ring. Grandma stopped talking to Dad as much. And she no longer drew pictures of a happy family.
Now,
Her drawings had two houses, and always a line between them. The next day, she went back to Claire, who noticed something different in her daughter's eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were distant, like someone far older than her age lived behind them. Claire asked gently, "How is it with Daddy?" Lily paused. "Okay. Did you talk?" "Not really." Claire sat beside her. "You can ask me anything."
say anything.
"I won't be mad." Lily whispered, "Will he leave Caleb like he left me?" Claire's heart shattered. She gathered Lily into her arms and rocked her like she was a baby again. "No, sweetheart," Claire said, voice breaking. "But even if he does, that's not your fault. What happened between me and Daddy was never your fault. Ever." Days turned to weeks. Lily stopped asking when she'd see Caleb. She stopped bringing her teddy bear to Dad's place. She stopped believing in the version of love that lived in fairy tales. One day, Claire found her sitting by the window with a photo in her hands, an old picture of their family at the beach. Ethan's arm was around Claire. Lily was covered in sand, grinning. Claire sat down beside her. Lily asked, "Will we ever be like that again?" Claire took a deep breath.
No.
"But we can still be happy. Just differently." Lily nodded. "Do you still love him?" Claire smiled sadly. "I loved him enough to let him go." At school, Lily became quiet. Not withdrawn, just quieter. Her teacher noticed she no longer raised her hand first. She painted fewer butterflies, more rain. Her friends asked if she was okay.
She always said yes.
But, at night, she'd write in her diary, "I wish I had one house, one mom, one dad. But I have one mom, one dad, and too many questions." Then came the day Ethan brought Caleb to visit. Claire agreed to it for Lily's sake. "Maybe it'll help her understand," she said, though her stomach twisted. They met at a park. Lily stood stiffly as Ethan approached, baby in his arms. "This is your brother," he said softly. Lily looked at the tiny bundle. Caleb's eyes were wide, curious. She didn't say anything. After a long pause, she asked, "Can I hold him?" Ethan nodded.
Surprised.
She sat down on the bench. He placed Caleb in her lap carefully. Lily stared at her brother for a long moment, then smiled gently. "He's cute." Ethan smiled. "Just like you were." Then, as Claire watched from a distance, Lily whispered to the baby, "Don't worry. I'll never leave you." That night, Claire tucked her daughter into bed and asked, "How do you feel?" Lily looked up. "Better." "Because of Caleb?" "Because I think I can still be a big sister, even if it's not in one house." Claire kissed her forehead. "You're stronger than I'll ever be." Lily smiled. "I get that from you." But Claire knew the scars were there. The silent nights. The confusion. The questions that might never have answers. And she knew the only way forward was to keep loving loudly, keep showing Lily what real love looked like, steady, present, kind. Even if it meant being both mother and father. Even if it meant never fully healing herself. Because the child who saw everything had become the one holding everyone together. Ryan Harper never liked goodbyes. So when Claire left him 10 years ago, with nothing but a note and a returned engagement ring, he didn't chase her. He just let her go. But he never forgot. It started with a Facebook message. Simple. Polite. "Hey Claire. I'm in town for a few weeks. Would love to catch up if you're free." No pressure. She stared at it for hours before replying. Her hands trembled. Not because she feared him, but because part of her had long buried that name with everything she left behind. Now it had found its way back. They met for coffee on a rainy Thursday morning. Claire wore a gray turtleneck, no makeup. Ryan, always effortlessly handsome, showed up in a tailored coat and scarf, carrying the same quiet confidence he'd had a decade ago. "Still like your coffee black?" he asked, handing her a cup. She smiled faintly. "Still remember that?" "I remember everything," he said. They talked for 2 hours. About Tokyo.
Nursing.
Lily.
Divorce.
About life, its strange loops and half-closed doors. Ryan didn't judge. Didn't pry. He listened. "You look strong," he said. "I had to be," Claire replied. When they stood to leave, he hesitated. "I don't want to complicate anything, Claire. But if you ever want to talk again, I'd like that." She didn't promise anything. But she didn't say no. Ethan, meanwhile, was spiraling. After Grace left, the silence in the house was unbearable. Caleb cried more. He didn't know if it was teething or tension, but every time the baby screamed, Ethan felt like someone was shaking his soul. He tried calling Claire.
Once.
She didn't answer. He texted Lily. "I miss you." She replied, "I'm okay." Even his own mother barely spoke to him. And Grace?
Gone.
Like vapor. No address. No goodbye. One evening, Ethan saw Claire and Lily walking home from school, just ahead, under golden autumn light. Claire was laughing. Lily was telling a story, arms animated. Then a tall man stepped out of a parked car, waved, and Claire smiled. Ethan's stomach dropped. It was Ryan. He knew that face. The man Claire once loved. And suddenly, everything he had taken for granted, every mistake, every justification, felt like knives pressed to his chest. Later that night, Ethan showed up at Claire's doorstep. Not angry, not shouting, just broken. Claire opened the door slowly, surprised. "Ethan? Is it true?" he asked. "Are you seeing someone?" She leaned against the frame. "That's none of your business anymore. I need to know." Claire looked him in the eye. "I'm not interested in telling you anything until you start showing up for Lily. Until then, you're just a name on a mailbox." Ethan blinked. "I still love you," he said quietly. Claire froze, then laughed once, short, hollow.
No.
"You love what you lost. That's not the same." She shut the door. Helen was the next to confront him. She sat him down one Sunday afternoon after dropping Lily home. "You need to get it together, Ethan," she said. "You're not the only one hurting." "I know." "No, you don't know. You don't see how Lily hesitates before calling you. How Claire flinches when your name comes up. You don't see the damage. But I do." Ethan stared at the floor. "You need to make peace," Helen said. "With the past. With Grace. With yourself." "How?" he asked, voice small. "Start by apologizing," she said. "Not with words. With action."
So he did.
That week, he called Grace. Left a voicemail. "I'm sorry. For everything. For making you feel like a second choice. For disappearing. Caleb deserves better. If you'll let me, I want to be in his life. No pressure. Just, I want to try." No reply. But 3 days later, a message arrived.
Saturday.
2 p.m. Community Center. You can see him there. It was a start. Meanwhile, Claire met Ryan again. This time, at the park with Lily. Ryan brought her a book. A classic, The Velveteen Rabbit. Claire smiled. Still romantic. He shrugged. Still hopeful. Lily liked him. She asked questions. Made him laugh. Called him Mr. Ryan with shy curiosity. Claire watched, heart unsure. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was possible. And in this new life, possibility was more precious than certainty. That night, Lily asked Claire, "Is Mr. Ryan your boyfriend?" Claire chuckled.
No, honey.
"He's just a friend." Like how Daddy said Miss Grace was just a friend? Claire paused, then knelt beside her.
No, sweetie.
Real friends don't lie. Or hide. Lily nodded. "I think he's nice." Claire smiled. "Me too." Ethan saw them once more, Ryan, Claire, and Lily, at the farmer's market. Laughing. Sharing a caramel apple. He didn't go over. Didn't make a scene.
He just stood there.
Watching. Understanding for the first time what it meant to really lose something. Not because someone took it, but because he let it slip through his fingers. Redemption doesn't come with a bow. It's not granted with a single apology. It's earned, inch by inch, over time, through effort. Ethan Miller had a long way to go. The community center buzzed with the sound of children's voices. It was Saturday afternoon, and Caleb was in the toddler playgroup. Ethan stood at the doorway, hesitant. He hadn't seen his son in nearly 6 weeks. Grace noticed him. Her expression was unreadable. "Hey," he said quietly. "You're late," she replied. "I know. I'm sorry." She looked at him for a long moment. "He's over there." Caleb sat in a pile of foam blocks, trying to stack them with chubby fingers. Ethan walked over, crouched down, and said, "Hey, buddy." The boy looked up.
No recognición.
Just curiosity. Ethan's heart twisted. That day, Ethan stayed the whole session. He didn't try too hard, just followed Caleb's lead. Built block towers. Made car noises. Helped him up when he stumbled. Grace watched from across the room, guarded. Afterward, she said, "He's still too young to know who you are. But if you keep showing up, that'll change." Ethan nodded. "I want to."
Good. Because this isn't about you.
"It's about him. So don't disappear again." "I won't," he promised. Grace didn't smile. But she didn't walk away either. It was a start. Later that week, Ethan showed up at Lily's school recital. He stood near the back, next to Claire. She didn't say anything when he arrived. Just handed him the extra program and pointed to Lily's name in the lineup. When Lily stepped onto the stage in her pink ballet dress, she searched the crowd. Her eyes landed on Claire first. Then they shifted and paused. She saw him. Her lips didn't move, but her eyes said everything. "You came." After the performance, Lily ran to her mom first. Claire hugged her tight. Then Lily walked up to Ethan. "You saw me dance?" she asked. "I wouldn't miss it," Ethan said. "You used to," she replied bluntly. Ethan swallowed. "I know. I was wrong." Lily looked at him for a moment, then said, "I saved you a cookie." She handed him a sugar cookie wrapped in a napkin. Ethan took it like it was gold. "Thanks, sweetheart."
Don't call me that yet, Lily said.
And walked away. The next few weeks were a test of consistency. Ethan picked Lily up from school every Wednesday. He brought her to the library, then home for dinner at Claire's house, staying long enough to set the table, never long enough to confuse boundaries. He visited Caleb every Saturday. Sometimes Grace spoke to him. Sometimes she just handed him the diaper bag and said nothing. But she never shut the door in his face again. He wasn't perfect. He missed a pickup once due to work. He forgot to pack Lily's favorite scarf for a field trip. He struggled to make conversation that wasn't awkward or forced. But he kept showing up. And that, Claire noticed, was new. One evening, after dinner, Lily said, "Dad helped me with math today." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Did he do a good job?" Lily nodded. "He even showed me a trick with nines." "Wow," Claire said. "That's impressive." Lily hesitated. "Do you think he's changed?" Claire looked at her daughter, so young, yet so full of caution. "I think he's trying. That matters." Lily picked at her food. "I don't want to forgive him just because I'm supposed to." "You don't have to," Claire said gently. "You can forgive him when you're ready. Or not at all. It's your choice." Lily was quiet for a long moment, then whispered, "I'm tired of being mad." Meanwhile, Ethan was learning too. He stopped trying to fix everything with gifts. He stopped expecting Claire to make space for him in her world. He started asking Lily what she wanted instead of assuming. And for the first time in years, he went to therapy. Not because someone forced him, but because he wanted to understand why he broke what he once called home. His therapist asked him a hard question one day. If Claire had never left, would you have ever admitted you were unhappy? Ethan blinked, then said, "No. I would have just kept failing quietly." The therapist nodded. "So maybe this isn't about fixing the past. Maybe it's about building something new, from scratch, with humility." Claire, for her part, watched everything from a quiet distance. She wasn't ready to let Ethan back into her heart, but she could see he was doing the work. For Lily, for Caleb, for himself, and that mattered. One afternoon, Claire ran into Grace at the grocery store. Neither woman flinched. Grace nodded first. "Hey." Claire returned it. Hey. They stood in silence for a few seconds. Then Claire said, You look tired. Grace laughed. Single motherhood does that. Claire paused. You're not alone. Grace looked at her. For the first time, no walls.
No judgment. Neither are you, she replied.
That night, Claire asked Lily, Would you ever want Caleb to visit? Lily thought about it. Maybe. One day. Claire smiled. That's fair. Because redemption isn't earned with a grand gesture. It's earned with small ones. Repeated. Every day. Without expectation. Not everything broken needs fixing. Some things need to be let go. And others are worth holding onto with both hands. Claire stood in the kitchen, staring at the envelope Ryan had left her. A job offer. In Boston. 3 hours away. Better pay. Better hospital. A fresh start. He'd slipped it across the table during dinner the night before. No pressure, he said. But if you want more, for yourself, for Lily, it's there. Claire hadn't said yes. Or no. Because the truth was, she didn't know what she wanted anymore. She was finally safe again. But, was she living? Lily had grown quieter lately. Not in a sad way, more in a thoughtful way. Her questions were deeper. Her drawings more detailed. And one morning, as they made breakfast, she asked, Mom, if we leave this house, do we have to leave our memories too? Claire blinked, caught off guard. Why do you ask? I heard you on the phone. You said something about Boston. Claire sighed. It's just a job offer. Nothing's decided. Lily nodded. I like our life here. But if you want to go, I'll go with you. That night, Claire cried alone in her room. Because children should never be the ones willing to let go first. Across town, Ethan was finally learning what it meant to stay. He showed up for Caleb's daycare recitals. Changed diapers without complaint. Helped Grace organize her bills when her hours got cut at the store. He didn't expect forgiveness. He didn't beg for it either. He just kept showing up. One day, Grace looked at him across the kitchen table and said, You're different now. Ethan didn't smile. He just nodded. I'm trying. Grace added, Don't stop. Helen, watching it all, felt a strange peace she hadn't known in years. She still carried bitterness, especially when she passed Twin, the woman who once stood in the center of Ethan's collapse, but she saw now that Ethan wasn't the same boy who let love rot in his hands. And Lily, her sweet, bright granddaughter, had learned not just to forgive but to speak truth when it mattered. Helen had always believed strength came from silence. But now she saw it came from honesty. Then came a Sunday afternoon picnic. Lily had asked for it, like old times, but with new people. So there they were.
Claire.
Ethan. Lily. Caleb.
Grace.
Helen. And Ryan. Awkward at first, but strangely whole. Lily played catch with Caleb, gently showing him how to hold the ball. Ethan grilled burgers. Ryan helped Claire carry the cooler. Grace made fruit salad and quietly passed it to Helen without a word. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Later, Lily asked Claire, Are you and Mr. Ryan in love? Claire smiled. We care about each other. A lot. Do you love Daddy still? Claire thought for a moment. I'll always love what we had. But sometimes, love changes shape. And that's okay. Lily looked out toward the grass, where Ethan was lifting Caleb up and spinning him in slow circles. I think Daddy's trying to be better. Claire nodded. I think he is too. That night, Claire met Ryan at a bench outside her house. The air was crisp. Leaves rustled softly in the wind. I got the offer, he said. They want an answer this week. Claire exhaled. It's a good offer. But is it right? Ryan asked. Claire didn't answer immediately. I've rebuilt so much here, she finally said. Leaving now feels like running. Again. Ryan looked at her carefully. You're not the woman who ran. You're the woman who stayed. Even when it was hardest. Claire reached for his hand. But I think I finally know what I want to stay for. And what's that? She smiled. My daughter. My peace. And maybe one day something more. But right here. Not somewhere else. Ryan nodded. heart both full and a little broken. He understood. 3 days later, Claire declined the Boston offer. She stayed. Ryan, respectful, extended his contract in town. They took things slow. No pressure. Just presence. Because Claire knew, real love wasn't loud. It was consistent. One evening, Lily sat at her desk, scribbling in her journal. Claire peeked over her shoulder. "What are you writing?" Lily grinned. "A story."
About what?
Lily read aloud. "Once upon a time, there was a girl with 2 homes, 2 parents, and 1 big heart. And she learned that sometimes the best kind of family is the one you grow, not the one you expect." Claire blinked through tears. "That's beautiful." Lily shrugged. "I get it from you. And maybe that's what life is. Choosing what stays. Not what's perfect. Not what never broke. But what's still here after everything." Time didn't heal everything, but it softened the edges. A year passed. Spring again. The trees blossomed outside Claire's window, sunlight filtered through white curtains, and laughter filled the small kitchen as Lily flipped pancakes with slightly too much enthusiasm. Claire sipped her coffee and smiled. It was quiet, the kind of quiet she used to long for. And for once, it wasn't empty. Ethan had moved into a small house across town. A modest rental with 2 bedrooms, hand-me-down furniture, and dinosaur stickers on the fridge that Lily had insisted Caleb would love. He didn't see Grace often anymore. She'd taken a job 2 counties over. They'd agreed it was better that way. Co-parenting from afar. Sharing weekends and birthdays. There was no drama. No shouting matches. Just a clear line. This chapter is closed. And that was enough. Ethan had finally learned how to be alone. To cook.
To clean.
To plan ahead. To show up even when it was inconvenient. And Lily had noticed. One afternoon, she stood in his kitchen, watching him wipe down the table after dinner, and said, "You're a good dad now." He froze.
Now. Yeah.
"Back then, you were kind of a mess." Ethan laughed, then knelt beside her. "You're right. I was. And I'm so sorry for that." Lily shrugged. "You're better now. I forgive you." Then added, like only a child could, "But if you mess it up again, I'm telling Grandma." Claire and Ryan had grown into something steady. Not urgent.
Not desperate.
Just kind. They took Sunday walks through the park. Watched documentaries with Lily. Built a vegetable garden in the backyard, and somehow kept a basil plant alive longer than 2 weeks. Claire didn't wear a ring. She didn't need to. Because trust had grown in the spaces where doubt once lived. One summer evening, they hosted a barbecue. Ethan was there. So was Helen. And Grace even stopped by to drop off Caleb before heading to her night shift. She didn't stay, but she smiled at Claire, nodded to Ryan, and tousled Lily's hair on her way out. It was strange. How everything had once exploded, lives shattered like glass, yet now they all stood around the same backyard, laughing at Lily's joke, sharing coleslaw, and arguing over who burned the hot dogs. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And somehow it was enough. Later that night, Claire found Lily sitting on the porch swing, feet bare, eyes turned toward the stars. "Can I ask you something, Mom?" "Always." "Are we a normal family now?" Claire thought for a long second.
"No," she said.
"We're better than normal. We're ours." Lily grinned. "That's what I was thinking too." In the fall, Claire was invited to speak at a local women's group. The theme was what I've learned about love. She stood in front of the microphone, heart pounding, palms cold, and looked at the crowd of strangers, some single, some divorced, some tired, some trying. And she said, "I thought love was about never giving up on someone. Then I thought love was sacrifice. Then I thought love was holding on no matter how much it hurt. But now I know. Love is choosing peace over chaos. Love is showing up. Love is boundaries. Love is forgiving someone, even when you decide not to let them back in."
She paused.
Then added, "And sometimes love is the courage to start again. Not with someone else, but with yourself." The room fell into silence. And then applause. That night, Claire returned home to find a note on her pillow. It was from Lily. Dear Mom, I heard you practicing your speech. I think you're really smart. Thanks for being the kind of mom who didn't give up on me or you. P.S. I think our family is the best one in the whole school. Claire held the note to her chest. And for the first time in a long time, she felt whole. As the seasons turned, so did life. Lily grew into a bright, opinionated preteen. Caleb started kindergarten and told everyone his big sister taught him how to spell love. Ethan coached Little League. Ryan taught Lily how to ride a bike. Helen brought cookies every Sunday, without fail. And Claire? She stopped running. She built a home.
A tribe.
A peace she didn't know she deserved. Because, in the end, life wasn't about what broke you. It was about the pieces you chose to keep. And the people who helped you build something new. And that brings us to the end of today's story on Truistory Vibes. Don't forget to leave a comment with a quote or moment that touched you the most. Your words give our team the motivation to keep creating more heartfelt stories. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again soon.